Everybody will have some sort of pushback to your solution, and you being experts in your particular fields, you're going to have the most pushback, right? And so you're your worst enemy in that regard. You're going to identify the problem, and then people are going to come to you with potential solutions, but you're going to knock them down because you know your field so well. But I think it's really about stepping out of your box, thinking about how other people would think about your challenges, and then start to ask the right questions and frame the problem correctly. So people who think outside the box often talk to people who play in a different box to get new ideas. And so this is one of the reasons why I think what Elizabeth is doing with this innovation series is really effective, because it does bring people from completely different sectors in to talk about what they're doing. But if the more you guys can do this, whether it's at work or personally, or even just on a bi-weekly basis to meet up with somebody for coffee that's doing something totally different, can really help expand your view, not only in business, but I think in innovating around your project. So every week at Public Stuff, one of our staff will sit down with somebody else outside of the company doing something totally different. And so we have somebody whose project that is to set up coffee or little lunch dates with people in our network, whether it's an investor, whether it's somebody from the media, whether it's somebody from the government, or even somebody in a totally different sector as well, because we're oftentimes stuck in our own world. We only talk to other startup companies and cities when we sell, but that's about it. And so we really need to take a step outside of our usual box where we play, and when we throw around ideas, to start bringing other people into the fold as well. And I think you'll be really surprised with the outcome after going through something like that. So once we go through these activities of asking the right questions and throwing them out to people who aren't in our industry to really get their feedback, it doesn't end there. So let's say you really nailed it, you really got that question down, and you were able to start to structure some potential solutions that you think might be effective. And you come up with a solution, and you're super excited, you bring it to your team, and you present it. And so what happens next? It's not done after that. So after you have that great idea, after you have that great solution, it doesn't just end. And so selling and marketing is actually so important in the process of innovation. It's the old saying of, if you build it, they will come. They will not come. And so you have to constantly be able to sell and market. And something that I'm always trying to work on when I'm selling and I'm marketing Public Stuff is getting the message very clear, being able to boil it down so that your messaging and your goals and your outcomes are super clear to people that you're talking to, and to constantly be selling it. And so if you really believe in a project that you're working on or an idea, to really understand, hey, what's your mission, what are some of the challenges, and here's your solution, but to never stop in that process of marketing and selling. But it's tough. It's really hard to be able to boil down your message and try to do it in under 60 seconds. If you can really get it to 30 to 60 seconds, be able to very quickly tell somebody what you're working on or what your proposed solution is, that's when you know you really understand it yourself. Now, if it takes you 30 minutes to an hour to really fully explain something, even if it's very complex, you're going to lose your potential listeners. And so I think that's a really important part to innovating. So once you have that idea, then being able to really market and sell effectively. And when we hear the words marketing and selling, we oftentimes associate it with teams, or marketing teams, or sales teams. But really, at the individual level, no matter at what level you're at, if you're working on a project, if you have a role, part of your role is to sell what you're doing and to be able to communicate that effectively. At Public Stuff, we iterate often, and we took that from a lot of startup companies as well. So we iterate often, we iterate quickly, and the idea behind it is it's never going to be perfect. We're never going to push it out. It's not going to be flawless. There's going to be mistakes and some bugs and some things we wish we had more time. Hey, I wish we had a year to roll out our next product update, but we don't. And so we iterate often. We learn so much in that process. We learn what we did wrong. We learn what we thought we should have done was actually incorrect. And so we're able to then more quickly clean up what we were doing previously and do it right the next time or better the next time. And so, I love the Thomas Edison quote, I haven't failed, I've just found 10,000 ways that don't work. And so it's this idea of not being afraid of small failures. And I think that holds a lot of us back in really, truly being able to think outside of the box because of fear of, looking silly or fear of saying the wrong thing, making a mistake. But I think if you take it in steps, and again, you start early in the process of talking to people, throwing out your ideas, trying to get the right problem set, you're going to learn so much. And even that first step of talking to people about a potential solution is you iterating and you testing out the process of trying to do what you're currently doing a little bit better. So, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed people can change the world. In fact, it is the only thing that ever has. So that's a Margaret Mead quote, and it's a great quote because for startups, we often look at the size of our company, the number of people in our company, and there are times for sure that I think we all are just amazed at the challenge that lay ahead of us. So, how can we really reach 50,000 local government agencies in the U.S.? And that's just in the U.S. We want to go international one day. So how do we actually do that with a team of 15 people? And so for us, it's really important to take a look at the size of our team and really believe that we can make a huge impact and that it always starts somewhere and it always starts small, whether it's an idea, your department, your team, your focus area. And I'm going to talk a lot about the startup world because that's the world we're in, but for example, Instagram, a team of 11 people, they were able to just generate so much interest in what they're doing, and it's because they were passionate about photos. They were really passionate about bringing a community around photos to tell stories, to interact, and to connect people. And another company, Facebook, saw a lot of value in that as well. But you can be sure that they doubted it so many times in that process. And they're a team of 11 and sold for $1 billion in less than 2 years. So it's a great success story. There's tons of little success stories that we don't hear about every single day. And I think it's really about having that belief in smaller teams and in what you're doing, even though it might just be a part of a much larger issue. So, just summarizing some of my thoughts around innovation. Again, I think it's really about understanding your problem set, and maybe if it truly is the perfect problem and there aren't any solutions, to refocus on what your project is. Maybe your goals and your outcomes are the wrong ones, and so to take a step back even further to start looking at, hey, am I identifying the goal or the project correctly? And once you start to do that, I think you can really start to distill some of the value behind that process. And if you go through that constantly with every project, I think it would be really valuable. So, any questions about the presentation? A toll-free number, and so residents that don't use the web or mobile phones, they can actually call into the toll-free number and report their issue, and then it automatically gets transcribed voice to text as a service request for the staff. So it's fully automated. It's a really smart system. We also do text messaging as well. So if people don't have a smartphone, they can text message in. And we're really trying to increase the accessibility of city services to people on the fringes that may not normally have access to their local government.
Thank you.
So we don't get that really in our team, but we experience that when we're selling a lot,
Yeah.
right? And I think it comes back to the idea of being able to understand very discreetly what the pushback is. Being able to write it down. What are the top 5 things that you're getting pushback on from your managers or other team members about your ideas. And then I think taking a really honest look at that. And, not all ideas are great ideas, right? So I'm not here saying, like, innovate and your ideas are all amazing and they should all be done, right? But this idea of really understanding what are the challenges that people have, or what are the pushback items that people have about your ideas, and then being able to either address them with the best solution. The best solution, again, will not solve all of the challenges, but if you're able to very clearly state what your proposed solutions are to those, I think it can be valuable. But again, I think it's about understanding those 5. And if you can't get the right solution, or if you can't walk through that thought process and that brainstorming process and really get to that right solution, then I think you have the wrong problem identified. So your goals are wrong, and they're not aligned with really what your team or your manager is looking for. So I think it's about really communicating well and being able to align those. And I don't think the enemy is, your team or lack of ideas. I think it really is obscurity, and thinking too much in your own head about your own solutions and your own ideas, and not really listening to the other side of the table as much. So I think it's so hard when you really believe in your solutions and your ideas, and it can be the most painful thing to tell the other person, you know what, you're right. Maybe this won't be successful because of these reasons. And from my perspective, I get that a lot from my team members as well. There's so many great ideas, but there's also so many reasons why we can't do all of them. And for me, I think it's a challenge to be able to communicate why. And we're trying to do that a lot more in our teams. Oftentimes it's about just telling them why. Here are the top 5 reasons why we can't do that now, or that just won't work. But if you can come back to me, if you can really come back to me having done some research, being able to test out your idea with other people as well, you can change my mind, but I think that's a really delicate balance, and it really involves a lot of communication. So, yeah. A third of our team are developers, so they're the ones creating the product. They're the ones really designing the product, fleshing it out. Another third of the team is based on sales, and so they do all outbound communication sales, and then the last third is marketing, so they're communication, marketing, and business related. And even with such a small team of just 15, it's interesting because we're starting to see some of these communication gaps between the groups, and these teams really like to go out with and have their team, lunches or team events or something like that. But it's really interesting now. We're getting at that breaking point, and we're going to add on about 5 more people this summer. Is how can we really get out these ideas? And a lot of people, I'm realizing, will hold in their frustration for a while about ideas that they have, or why they think something's isn't done the way that it should be done. And then we have these long meetings where we go through it. And so what we're trying to implement is this idea of iterating quickly. We'll speak up quickly, and so we want to hear sooner rather than later. I'd rather hear from you, in the first couple weeks of rolling out a project versus 2 months down the line when we're already halfway through it. So speak quickly, and we'll be able to address those issues faster as well. So,
thank you.
Yeah. Yep. So the question is, as a company scales from just the original founders, how do you really maintain a level of creative activity amongst everyone on the team without sort of losing that drive that co-founders often have? So I think that's a great question, and something we recently were challenged with is this idea that a lot of the core ideas that we end up implementing do come from the founders or people that are higher up in the organization. It's not because we have written it down and that's the way it's structured. It just ends up happening like that. But I don't necessarily agree that that's the way it should happen.